Here we have a problem on rational equation. There is a rational equation given over here. And in this rational equation, we have three unknown constants P, Q, and R. And we have to find the value of P positive, Q positive, R. Okay, so first let's simplify the addition of the two fractions we have on the right side of the given equation. So let me write the stuff on the left side as it is. It is 3x squared positive 4x over x negative 2 times x squared positive 1. Okay, to simplify the addition of these two fractions, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do cross multiplication. So that is, I multiply this numerator p by this denominator x squared positive 1. Then I'm getting p times x squared positive 1. I multiply this numerator by this denominator. Then I'm getting qx positive r times x minus 2. Further, I have to multiply the two denominators over here. Then I'm getting x negative 2 times x squared positive 1. Okay, here we have a fraction on the left side, we have a fraction on the right side, and both the fractions have the same denominator, that is x negative 2 times x squared positive 1. If I multiply both sides of this equation by x minus 2 times x squared positive 1, this one and this one will cancel out. So then I have 3x squared positive 4x equals to p times x squared positive 1 positive qx positive r times x negative 2. Okay, now what I need to do is I have to plug in some random values for x to find the values of the constant, unknown constants p, q, r. Okay, in this equation, if I plug in x equals to 2, so here this 2 negative 2 will become 0. When 0 multiplied by this stuff, it will completely become 0. Then I'll be able to find the value of p. Okay, so now let me plug in x equals to 2. When I plug in x equals to 2, so what will be the value of this part? So particularly when I plug in x equals to 2 over here, it will become 2 square. 2 square is, the value of 2 square is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. And here 4 times 2, when I plug in x equals to 2, 4 times 2, which becomes 8 and equals to p times, when I plug in x equals to 2 over here, 2 square is 4. 4 positive 1. Positive. So when I plug in x equals to 2, this one will become 0. 0 times qx positive r. Whatever value when multiplied by 0, it will become 0. So then 12 positive 8 will become 20. On the right side, 4 positive 1 will become 5. 5 times p is 5p. Okay, then I divide both sides by 5. When I divide both sides by 5, this 5 will cancel out. 5 goes into 5 one times and 5 goes into 24 times. So I'm getting 4 equals to p. That is, I got the value of p. The value of p is 4. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in x equals to 0 into the same equation again. When I plug in x equals to 0, this because here when I plug in x equals to 0, q times 0, this part will become 0. That is, q will vanish. So then I'll have the equation in terms of p and r. So in that equation, if I plug in p equals to 4, I'll be able to get the value of q. Okay, let me do it. So in my next step, I'm going to plug in x equals to 0. When I plug in x equals to 0, this part will become 0, this part will become 0 because both the parts contain 0. I'm sorry, contain x. When I plug in x equals 0, both the parts will become 0. So finally, we have 0 on the left side. On the right side, when I plug in x equals to 0 here, so 0 square is 0, 0 positive 1 will become p times 1 and positive. Here, when I plug in x equals to 0 here, 0 times 2 will become 0 positive r. And when I plug in x equals to 0 here, 0 negative 2 is just negative 2. And 0 is equal to p times 1 is p positive r times negative 2. So in my next step, 0 is equal to p positive, sorry, not p positive. When I multiply positive and negative, it becomes a negative. R times 2 is 2r. Okay, now I can plug in the value 4 for p because already we got the value of p, that is 4. When I plug in 4 for p, it will become 4 negative 2r. I add 2r to both sides because my aim is to solve for 2r. When I add 2r to both sides, I'm getting, so here on the left side, 0 positive 2r will become just 2r. And here, this one will cancel. I'm just getting 4. I divide both sides by 2. When I do so, this 2 will cancel out. And r is equal to, when I divide 4 by 2, I'm getting 2. I got the value of r. So r equals to 2. Okay, so in my next step, what I'm going to do is in the same equation, I'm going to plug in some value like 1. If I plug in x equals to 1, so p will not become 0, q will not become 0, r will not become 0. So we'll have the equation with all the three unknown constants p, q, r. In that, I can plug in the values for p and q because we got the values for p, so not p and q, p and r. Because I got the values for p and r, so I can plug in p is equal to 4 and r is equal to 2. And I can find the value of q. So let me continue on the next page. Okay, this is the equation we have had on the previous page. Okay, now in this equation, I'm going to plug in x equals to 1. When I plug in x equals to 1, it will become 1 square. 1 square is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. and here 4 times 1 will become just 4, and on the right side we have p times. So when I plug in x equals to 1 over here, 1 square is just 1 positive 1 positive. So q, when I plug in x equals to 1, q times 1 is just q positive r. When I plug in x equals to 1, 1 negative 2 will become negative 1. Okay, so 3 positive 4 will become 7, and 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 times p is 2p, and we can write this negative p, negative 1 in front of this. Then I am getting a positive of negative 1 times q positive r. Okay, here we have the product of q positive r and negative 1. So since the multiplication is commutative, I write this negative 1 first and then q positive r next. Okay, 7 equals to 2p. Positive times negative will become negative, and so we have 1 times q positive r. Okay, 7 equals to 2p. So I just multiply this positive and negative, and positive times negative becomes negative. I have 1 over here. Now I can distribute this negative 1 to this q and negative 1 to this r. Negative 1 times q is negative q. Negative 1 times r is negative r. Okay, now already we know the value of p. P is equal to 4, q, r is equal to 2. Okay, now let's plug in p is equal to 4, then 2 times 4, negative q. And for r, we have 2, so we can plug in r is equal to 2. Okay, so we get 7 equals to 2 times 4 is 8, negative q, negative 2. So now I'm getting 7 is equal to, so when I combine this 8 and negative 2, I'm getting positive 6. That is negative q, positive 6. Okay, I subtract 6 from both sides. When I subtract 6 from both sides, positive 6, negative 6 will cancel out. 7 negative 6 becomes just 1. 1 equals to negative q. I need the value of q, but here we have negative q. So to get of this negative sign, better we can multiply both sides by negative 1. If I multiply this one by negative 1, negative 1 times 1 is just negative 1. When I multiply this one by negative 1, it becomes positive q. Now I got the value of q. So q is equal to negative 1. Okay, now I have the values of all the three unknown constants p, q, r. So according to the question, we have to find the value of p positive, q positive, r. So now let's plug in 4 for this p. Positive, and for q we have negative 1, and for r we have 2. Okay, so we have 4 positive times negative will become negative 1, positive 2. So when I subtract 1 from 4, I'm getting 3. So we get 3 positive 2. 3 positive 2 is equal to 5. So the value of p positive, q positive, r equals to 5.